Thank you, Diane. Appreciate you playing for us this morning. If you have not received a bulletin, both Todd and Kevin are still available in the back. They can hook you up. On the front are our announcements, and on the back is a place to take some notes and track of our conversation for this morning. As we begin, I want to kind of read 3 different stories for you, brief stories, snippets of some individuals' lives, and then kind of walk you through some similarities that they have as we open up our Bibles here in a moment. The first one is a man by the name of Ronald Wayne. Ronald Wayne is the lesser-known third co-founder of Apple alongside Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. He helped establish the company in 1976 by drafting the original partnership agreement, designing Apple's first logo, and writing the Apple I computer manual. Wayne initially owned a 10% stake in the company, but chose to leave just 12 days after its founding. Wayne sold his ownership for $800 because he was concerned about the financial risk of being personally liable for the startup's debts. His former stake would be worth hundreds of billions of dollars today. Ronald Wayne walked away from Apple maybe just a bit too early. Another individual by the name of Laszlo Hajek. There's going to be a lot of names, by the way, today in Scripture that I'm going to do the best I can to pronounce. This is just the introduction. But in May 2010, this software developer made history by offering 10,000 Bitcoins in exchange for 2 large pizzas. Another Bitcoin user accepted his offer by ordering pizzas for him, creating what is widely recognized as the first real-world commercial purchase made with Bitcoin. Now, I did the math. If you had 10,000 Bitcoin as of this week, that is worth approximately $630 million. Those better have been some really good pizzas. One of my sons definitely would have made that transaction. Laszlo sold his Bitcoin just a bit too early. One other man named Daniel Claude. Daniel Claude married Claire Barrington, believing that their love would always remain effortless. But over time, stress, responsibilities, and unresolved conflicts created distance between them. And instead of seeing their struggles as normal challenges that could be worked through, Daniel began focusing on the problems and convinced himself the marriage was no longer worth saving. Even though Claire tried to reconnect and repair the relationship, Daniel chose to leave, believing that a fresh start would bring him happiness. After leaving, and over a bit of time, Daniel slowly realized that he had given up before truly fighting for his marriage. Daniel Claude gave up on his marriage just a bit too early. All of these individuals walked away a tad bit early. Now, Ronald Wayne and Laszlo Hajek, I just pronounced it differently that time, those are real people with real stories. Daniel Claude is one I made up, a fictional character, but his story parallels the story of many. Despite the existence or non-existence of the characters of these stories illustrate something fundamental that every single one of us wrestle with today. That is that often we are tempted to quit before the work is done. We're tempted to walk away early, call it quits, cut our losses. And we see this across all areas of life, right? We see this in the examples of these stories, but we experience it as well. Maybe it's with a business. You're ready just to close up shop, sell things off, you're done. An education that God put on your heart to pursue for a certain calling in your life. You never started, or you never finished, or went back, you just called it quits. Maybe it's like that marriage, and you separated or filed for divorce before exhausting every option. You called it quits way too early. Maybe even your faith. You walk in the doors of church today and, man, you're ready to call it quits because following Jesus isn't what you thought it would be. See, this is so fundamental for us as people, right? We are tempted to quit before the work is done, and we do this because things get tough. It gets uncomfortable at times, having hard conversations, bearing it out, and we choose to stop. Sometimes it's for difficulties. Sometimes we just lose interest in the mundane day-to-day of life. We get tired of fighting it. Maybe we say we have a different sense of calling. Often we quit before the work is done. And sometimes, though, maybe you're thinking this, sometimes you need to quit. But other times you need to stick it out. You see, this is, I think, one of the two hardest things about being an adult. You need to know when to quit, and you need to know when to not quit. That is one of the most challenging things of life, is it not? Sometimes we are called to quit, to leave, to walk away, but often we're not. That's a conversation for you and God to have. But today I want you just to consider what it would be like for you to stick it out, assuming that whatever that thing is that God has called you to, maybe something seemingly grand or mundane, from building a business to just parenting your kids to dealing with that coworker, what would it be like to stick around, to bear it out? When we quit too early, sometimes we miss out on the greatest blessings that God has for us. If we finish well, if that's a goal that you have, that is for me, what challenges should you expect as you seek to finish well, as you seek to bear it out? If you got your Bibles, go ahead and turn with me to Nehemiah chapter 6. We're going to be looking at chapter 6 and chapter 7 today. That's page 472 in your Pew Bible. We're going to be looking at Nehemiah, stepping into week 3 of the series entitled Under Construction, as we walk through this book. This book was authored by Nehemiah, right? It's got his name on it. It's kind of focusing on this character. And if you're familiar with Israel's history, Israel has split, effectively gone through a civil war. They had been conquered by greater empires and nations, and they've been hauled off to those nations' capitals and regions. And so Israel, at this point in history, as Nehemiah writes, that Israel, the country, the people group, are not doing well. A majority of them don't even live in the land anymore. And so Nehemiah is one of those individuals who does not live in the land, at least as we're introduced to him in this book. He is a cupbearer for the Persian king, but he loves his people. He loves the capital city of Jerusalem. And at this time, a number of Jewish people have been allowed to return to Jerusalem. And Nehemiah, among many other Hebrew people, hope and dream and pray that the former glory of the city will be restored. The walls will be rebuilt. The temple will be rebuilt. And up until this point in time, the walls have not been rebuilt. They lay in ruin, and Nehemiah hears about that, and his heart breaks. And so if you've been tracking with us for the past several weeks, Nehemiah inquires with the Persian king if he can go back and see to it that these walls are rebuilt. And God moves. He allows him to return and to rebuild those walls. Nehemiah, though, he is really in one of the toughest parts of this project. He's been rebuilding the walls, facing some opposition. But now, as you know, sometimes it's not getting started that's the hardest, it's finishing. He's in the home stretch of finishing this project, and he is beginning to experience some real temptations to quit, some challenges he's confronting. And these challenges will inform us as well when we are thinking about quitting, calling it quits, walking away ourselves. So what challenges should we expect as we seek to finish well? Your first blank for you here. Expect challenges from the outside. Just watch the train of pictures here of each point. I did these late at night, and so they're kind of weird now that I think about it. Right? She's getting germs from the outside. Nehemiah experienced challenges from the outside. Go ahead and take a look at chapter 6, verse 1 through 2 with me. As Nehemiah is seeking to build the walls, he has opposition, real opposition, that is taking place from the outside. We've been introduced to some of these characters, Sanballat, Tobiah. There's a number of other individuals in the area that don't want to see the walls go up. They love being able to come in and manipulate and intimidate the Hebrew people. They know if the walls are rebuilt, their days of doing that are over. And so they want to see this project not be completed. And so now they're beginning to put some very real pressure on Nehemiah to not finish the walls. Nehemiah is experiencing challenges from the outside to not see this vision become a reality. Chapter 6, verse 1 through 2. Now when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem, the Arab, and the rest of our enemies heard that I had built the wall, and that there was no breach left in it, although up to that time I had not set up the doors or the gates, Sanballat and Geshem sent to me, saying, Come, and let us meet together at Ketprium in the plain of Ono. But they intended to do me harm. The plain of Ono. Oh, no, don't go there. Here we have some individuals, right? They see, right, the proverbial writing on the wall. They see the walls going up. They don't like that. And so now they are beginning to form a plan of figuring out how we can distract, how we can challenge Nehemiah, the leader of this movement, to stop building the walls, right? They don't like the progress being made. And so they reach out to Nehemiah to set up a meeting, seemingly innocent. But Nehemiah, as the author of this book, knows that this is not an innocent meeting. They intended to do him harm. They intended to do the project harm. And so what he experiences is the challenge of distraction. Right? Pause what you're doing for a moment. Come and talk with us. Right? They're trying to pull his attention away, capture his time and his energy, and likely his life. And Nehemiah, though, he knows that. He sees right through this. This isn't just a friendly conversation. He knows this is a way to distract and to challenge him from finishing the job God had called him to do. Verses 3 through 4. And I sent messengers to them saying, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? And they sent to me 4 times in this way, and I answered them in the same manner. All right, so Nehemiah gets this invitation to see these individuals who want to see this work stop. And Nehemiah responds with complete focus. He effectively says, nah, guys, I'm busy. Right? He doesn't even go and talk to them himself. He sends messengers, and this occurs not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 times up until this point. He says, I am so busy on the goal that God has given me, I don't have time to come talk with you. I'll send somebody else to chat with you. I'm going to focus on the task in front of me. So he has a challenge from the outside of just being distracted, just pausing for a moment, setting his tools down. And Nehemiah's response is, no, I am focused on what God has called me to do. But obviously these individuals were not content with that response. And so they reach out to him a 5th time. Verse 5. In the same way, Sanballat, for the 5th time, sent his servant to me with an open letter in his hand. In it was written, it is reported among the nations, and Geshem also says it, that you and the Jews intend to rebel, and that is why you are building the wall. And according to these reports, you wish to become their king. And you have also set up prophets to proclaim concerning you in Jerusalem, there is a king in Judah. And now the king will hear of these reports. So now come and let us take counsel together. Right, so a 5th time they reach out to him and they have a different plan of attack. Now note there in verse 5, they send a servant with an open letter, right? It's not sealed. They want all the people, right? They want the servant to kind of glance at it and read it as he's delivering it and have some chats with people. They want to spread rumors among the people that Nehemiah's intention is not pure. He's trying to place himself as king over Judah, to rebel against the Persian emperor. They're starting rumors. They're trying to assassinate his character. They're threatening him. They are blackmailing him. And I love kind of the innocent little phrase at the end. So now come and let us take counsel together. Let's figure this out, Nehemiah. We're here to help you. But Nehemiah sees right through that. So they challenge him here with a threat. Not only just a distraction, but now a threat. And Nehemiah responds, verse 8, no such things as you say have been done. For you are inventing them out of your own mind. For they all wanted to frighten us, thinking their hands will drop from the work, and it will not be done. But now, O God, strengthen my hands. Nehemiah sees these claims. He hears these character assassinations, this blackmail that they send against him, and he dismisses them, claiming that all of these accusations that they have made have been purely fabricated. He will not let this distract him from his work. This tactic will not work. he responds yet again with complete focus, saying, right, I'm busy, and frankly, I don't care what you think. I'm going to continue pursuing what God has given me to do. He knows what's important, and he wants to see it accomplished. He wasn't worried about his reputation or what other people think. He trusted God because he was trusting God this whole process. One of my favorite Supercross racers of all time was a man by the name of Ricky Carmichael. Ricky Carmichael is regarded as one of the greatest motocross racers of all time, earning the nickname the GOAT. And he earned this nickname because he had a career that was defined by unmatched dominance. In fact, from 97 to 2007, he won many AMA championships. In fact, he was one of the riders that recently jumped across the White House lawn. I got to see him a number of times racing. It was pretty neat. But he, unlike many other sports stars, decided to quit while on top. Some sports stars do, but many kind of slowly ride their careers out. But he ended his career about 10 years ago on top with a win, with a championship. And one of the goals of doing this was he had a clear goal of saying, hey, I don't want to ride this thing out. I want to quit while on top. He had a clear picture of his goals. He didn't want his racing career to end on kind of a dull note. He knew what he was doing and why he was doing it. And so he quit at like the ripe age of like 29. He retired, started another career in racing stock cars. He knew clearly what he was doing and why he was doing it. As you look at Nehemiah's story, he's able to deal with these attacks from the outside because he knew why he was doing, or what he was doing and why he was doing it. He had a clear idea of why he was doing the things he was doing. The reality is many of us, right, on the day-to-day, we don't necessarily comprehend why we do what we do. We experience challenges and we fold quickly because we don't have a clear picture of what we're doing as parents, as husbands or wives, as followers of Jesus. We don't have a clear picture on our goals, right? Why are we pursuing this business, this relationship? Right? Why do you want that divorce? Why are you trying to keep that business open? Why are you trying to close it? What are you hoping to accomplish by pursuing that education? Are you consulting with God in this process? Right? A clear picture of the goals will make these challenges much easier to navigate. Nehemiah knew why those walls were being rebuilt. He knew who had given that vision to him, and it made it much easier to deal with the challenges that he faced. But he faced challenges from the outside, but he also faced challenges from the inside. Here our girls got a cold. Take a look at verses 10 through 12. And here's some of those words I'm just going to butcher. Verse 10. Now when I went into the house of Shemaiah, the son of Delaiah, son of Mehetabel, gosh, that's bad, who was confined to his home, he said, let us meet together in the house of God within the temple. Let us close the doors of the temple, for they are coming to kill you. They are coming to kill you by tonight. But I said, should such a man as I run away? And what man such as I should go into the temple and live? I will not go in. And I understood and saw that God had not sent him, but he had pronounced the prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. So Nehemiah is facing challenges from these outsiders, but he's also facing challenges from people on the inside. Here we have a fellow Hebrew, a possible priest, who reaches out to Nehemiah and says, hey, I'm hearing about these things. Let's hide away in the temple, right? Slowing him down again from the work. If he goes into hiding, this work is going to be slowed down. It's going to be brought to a halt. And we see that this individual confronts Nehemiah not necessarily because he's worried about Nehemiah, but because he had been bought out by Tobiah and Sanballat. He has different motivations. There is another challenge again of deception, manipulation, right? They're saying, God says you should stop, right? God says you should leave your spouse. God says you should do these things. You'll have people all the time that'll use God's name to get you to stop. Nehemiah sees right through that, though. He says this clearly to this man, for this purpose he was hired, that I should be afraid and act in this way and sin. so they could give me a bad name in order to taunt me. Remember Tobiah and Sanballat, oh my God, according to these things that they did, and also the prophetess Noadiah and the rest of the prophets who wanted to make me afraid. Nehemiah sees right through this scam, this charade of sorts. And he again is completely focused, saying, you don't speak for God. You are misrepresenting him. God will judge you and Sanballat and all of these other people, right? It wasn't just one Hebrew individual. There was a number of them that had sided with Tobiah and Sanballat, trying to slow Nehemiah down. And again, he is focused. He has a clear vision of what needs to be accomplished. And he says, I'm not slowing down. Verse 15 to 19. So the wall was finished on the 25th day of the month of Elul, in 52 days. And when all our enemies heard of it, all the nations around us were afraid and fell greatly in their own esteem, for they perceived that this work had been accomplished with the help of our God. Moreover, in those days, the nobles of Judah sent many letters to Tobiah, and Tobiah's letters came to them. For many in Judah were bound by oath to them. There's a list of people that are essentially bound, connected, and in bed with Tobiah. Verse 19, also they spoke of his good deeds in my presence and reported my words to him. And Tobiah sent letters to make me afraid. So the wall is finished here. This announcement is made, right, to the people. It's known throughout the region, and it is received with mixed emotions. Again, there's Hebrew people that have sided with people like Tobiah. They don't like the fact that the Hebrew people have rebuilt these walls. And when we experience this type of opposition, it can be hard, right? People that we love might not approve of the thing that you are pursuing. I think of Chuck Swindoll's story when he was at a church in Texas and felt a very clear call to move to California. The very people he was ministering and loved, ministering to for a number of years in that church, came to him and said, this is not of God, you should not go to California, right? Who wants to go to California, right? But they're saying these things, people he loved, hurtful things. And clearly they were in the wrong, and so he had a clear calling to go, and so he went despite what people said, and you might experience that as well. Right? People from within the Hebrew people group, right? The Jewish people sided with Tobiah and Sanballat that were against this project. Nehemiah experienced real hard opposition from the inside, and you might as well, from your family, right? Why are you a part of that church? Why do you give your time and money to that ministry? Why are you still in that marriage? Why are you pursuing that education? Those words hurt. And if you're going to navigate those challenges, you have to have a very clear picture of why you're there and why God called you to it. Nehemiah is able to deal with that because he has a very clear picture of that. So if we're going to finish well, we got to expect challenges from the outside, challenges from the inside, and then finally challenges from within, right? From within our own hearts. There's our little cartoon girl. She's sick, but she's not making some good choices either. I think that was my mindset when I was putting these together. Chapter 7, verse 1 through 4. And don't worry, we're not reading through all of chapter 7. You can do that if you're having a hard time sleeping tonight. Verse 1. Now when the wall had been built, and I had set up the doors and the gatekeepers and singers, and the Levites had been appointed, I gave my brother Hananiah and Hananiah, the governor of the castle, charge over Jerusalem. For he was a more faithful and God-fearing man than many. And I said to them, let not the gates of Jerusalem be opened until the sun is hot. And while they are still standing guards, let them shut and bar the doors. Anoint guards from among the inhabitants of Jerusalem, some at their guard post and some in front of their own homes. The city was wide and large, but the people within it were few, and no houses had been rebuilt. Nehemiah here is pretty much giving instructions for the guarding of the city, right? Who guards what walls, kind of this process of, now that the walls are up, how do we protect the city? I think it's kind of interesting, right? You would think, right, he finished this project, the walls are up, the gates are in place, everything's good to go. He can go back to Persia, he can do what he wants. But now he realizes that part of this vision as well is the utilization of these walls, why they were put in place. And so in these first 4 verses, he gives instructions for the guarding of the city. He puts trustworthy people in place to protect the walls and guard the gates. Right, as we see here at the end of verse 4. Yes, the walls are up, the temple's been rebuilt, but there's not a whole lot of people there in that city. And so Nehemiah is going through this intentional process of keeping the right people in and the wrong people out. Just because the walls were up did not make it impervious to attacks from within and without. Nehemiah, you could say, arrived, accomplished that goal, yet he still was intentional about guarding the city. You know, this is, I think, the hardest thing for us when God lays something on our heart to pursue, right? A ministry, maybe pursuing a marriage, making sure it stays alive, raising our kids. If we're not careful to guard our hearts, that vision can end quickly. You see, if Nehemiah was not careful about guarding the walls of that city, right, Tobiah, Sanballat, and all the other people who wanted to see it not built in the first place would come down and destroy it. Nehemiah's challenge didn't end with the completion of the walls. His challenge really was getting started. And here he is intentionally seeing to it that the city is guarded. If you were to read verses 5 through 73, again, we're not reading through all that. This is a census that he takes at the end of this project. And there's a number of conversation about why he takes this census, who's in it, and why they're there. But really what you see is it stands as a record of God's faithfulness. Not only for the Hebrew people, but for the world. These were a people who had been exiled from the land for hundreds of years. Right? They had received promises that this land was theirs and that God would bless them and take care of them. And they had been gone for a season, seemingly destroyed as a people. And now they're back in the land, seeing the temple and the walls rebuilt. And so this census, in many ways, again, is a reminder of God's faithfulness. A reminder that the promised restoration is and was real. And Nehemiah continues listening to God, guarding his heart, guarding the city against those who want to see it destroyed. As you deal with challenges for whatever God's laid before you, again, one of the hardest challenges is guarding your own heart. How are you guarding your heart, ensuring that you finish well? The stories like Ronald, Laszlo, and Daniel that I read for us at the beginning are all stories of individuals that quit too early, and by doing so, missed out on something great. So I want to encourage you today, if you come in and there's something on your heart and mind that you're just, you're ready to call it quits. You are so frustrated, you don't know how much longer you can endure. If this is something that God has clearly placed in front of you, I'm going to encourage you today to not quit. If God led you there, then continue, right? Finish the job. Finish the job. 2 questions and we'll be done. What do you need to quit? What do you need to continue leaning into? And why did God lead you to get started in the first place? Let's bow our heads in a word of prayer. Dear Lord, thank you so much for preserving this text, allowing us to read this story of Nehemiah as you clearly led him to oversee this project that you ordained, the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem. And not only is it a physical rebuilding, Lord, but man, it's a spiritual rebuilding for the people. It's a reminder, God, not only of just good leadership principles, but a reminder of your faithfulness. So God, I just pray for the individual who's here today that is just on the verge of calling it quits. Again, God, we know sometimes we need to stop and walk away and quit something. But sometimes, God, we quit too early. And so I pray for the individual who's on the verge of quitting a marriage, quitting a relationship, quitting a clear vision that you put in their heart, Lord, for pursuing of parenting, of anything, God. Lord, help just encourage them. Help them to deal with the challenges from outside, from inside, and from within. And Lord, strengthen them as they pursue that calling that you so clearly gave them. God, all of us want to quit sometimes, and so Lord, I pray for just encouragement today. Lord, we love you. Thank you for your amazing word and for loving us back. In your name, amen.